It was a chilly Wednesday afternoon in late autumn, and the McDonald's on 4th Avenue in the heart of Spokane was buzzing with the usual mix of customers: tired office workers grabbing a quick coffee, parents wrangling kids with Happy Meals, and students from the nearby high school spilling in after classes let out. The air smelled of fries and the faint tang of cleaning solution, and the hum of conversation blended with the clatter of trays. Near the back, by a window streaked with early November rain, sat Clarence Whitaker, a 62-year-old man with a face carved by time and hardship. His gray beard was patchy, his denim jacket threadbare, and his boots were held together with duct tape. A single black coffee sat before him, untouched, as he stared out at the drizzle, his hands folded tightly as if guarding something invisible. Clarence was a veteran, though you wouldn't know it from his appearance alone. The bronze star pin on his jacket was dulled by years of wear, barely noticeable unless you looked closely. He'd served 2 tours in Iraq, carried shrapnel in his left shoulder, and came home to a world that seemed to have moved on without him. His pension was barely enough to cover a motel room for a week each month, so he spent most nights in a tent behind an abandoned lot. The McDonald's was his refuge today, a place to stay warm and unnoticed, or so he hoped. The door swung open, and a group of 4 teenagers sauntered in, their laughter loud and careless. They were maybe 17, dressed in hoodies and sneakers, their energy filling the room like a sudden gust of wind. The leader, a tall kid with a backwards cap and a phone perpetually in hand, was named Ethan. His friends Lila, Marcus, and Jay followed him to the counter, joking and shoving each other. They ordered milkshakes and fries, their voices carrying over the restaurant as they mocked the cashier's slow pace. "Yo, hurry up, we got places to be," Ethan called, grinning as his friends snickered. As they settled into a booth a few tables from Clarence, their attention shifted. Lila, scrolling through her phone, glanced at the old man by the window. "Check out that guy," she said, nudging Ethan. "What's he even doing here? Smells like he hasn't showered since, forever." Her tone was light but cruel, the kind of casual meanness teenagers wield when they think no one's listening. Ethan leaned forward, smirking. "Yo, dude looks like he's auditioning for a zombie movie. Bet he's got, roaches in his pockets." The laughter that followed was sharp, slicing through the restaurant's hum. A few customers glanced over but quickly looked away, unwilling to get involved. Clarence didn't move, but his hands tightened around his coffee cup, his knuckles whitening. He kept his eyes fixed on the window, as if the rain could drown out the words. Marcus, the quietest of the group, hesitated, his smile faltering, but he didn't speak up. Jay, eager to keep the joke going, raised his voice. "Hey, Grandpa, you gonna finish that coffee or just use it as a hand warmer?" More laughter, louder now, drawing more eyes. Across the restaurant, behind the counter, a 17-year-old employee named Aisha Carter paused mid-order. She was on her 6th hour of a double shift, her maroon McDonald's uniform slightly wrinkled, her braids tucked neatly under her cap. Aisha was saving every penny for community college, dreaming of becoming a nurse. She wasn't one for drama, she kept her head down, worked hard, and avoided trouble. But something about the scene unfolding made her chest tighten. She glanced at her coworker, who shrugged and kept wiping down the counter. "Kids being kids," he muttered. But Aisha wasn't so sure. She stepped out from behind the counter, wiping her hands on her apron, and walked toward Clarence's table. There was no grand gesture, no speech, just a quiet determination in her steps. The teens noticed her immediately. Ethan leaned back, smirking. "Oh, what, you his bodyguard now?" he called, nudging Lila, who giggled. Aisha ignored them and sat down across from Clarence. "Hi," she said softly, her voice steady but kind. "I'm Aisha. You doing okay?" Clarence looked up, surprised, his eyes cloudy but sharp. He didn't speak at first, just nodded slightly, his grip on the coffee loosening. Aisha reached into her apron and pulled out a wrapped cheeseburger she'd bought for her own lunch. She slid it across the table. "You don't have to eat it now," she said, "but I thought you might want something warm." Clarence stared at the burger, then at her, like he wasn't sure what to make of the gesture. "Don't need charity," he murmured, his voice rough but not unkind. "It's not charity," Aisha replied. "It's just lunch." Behind them, Ethan's laughter cut through again. "Yo, this is wild. She's out here playing hero for Hobo Joe. He pulled out his phone, starting to record, the lens pointed at Aisha and Clarence. This is going viral, bet. His friends laughed, but it was thinner now, less certain. A few customers shifted uncomfortably, their fries forgotten. A woman with a toddler whispered something to her friend. A man in a suit glanced up from his laptop, frowning. Aisha turned slightly, her eyes locking on Ethan. You think it's funny to film someone without their permission? She asked, her voice calm but firm. Ethan faltered, his grin slipping. It's a free country, he shot back, but his tone lacked conviction. Yeah, Aisha said, and it's free for you to act like a decent person, too. Try it. The words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. The restaurant grew quieter, the kind of quiet that feels like it's holding its breath. Clarence shifted in his seat, clearly uneasy with the attention. Don't need a scene, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Aisha looked at him, her expression softening. You're not the one making a scene, she said. Then she turned back to the teens. You don't know this man's story. You don't know what he's been through. Maybe instead of laughing, you could learn something. Ethan lowered his phone slightly, his bravado fading. Lila crossed her arms, looking away, while Marcus stared at his tray, suddenly fascinated by his fries. Jay, the boldest after Ethan, scoffed. What's his deal, then? Why's he sitting here like he owns the place? Aisha didn't hesitate. Because he's a person. Same as you. Same as me. And he deserves to be here just as much as anyone else. The words landed like stones, heavy and undeniable. A man in a flannel shirt, sitting nearby with a coffee, stood up slowly. She's right, he said, his voice gravelly. You kids need to show some respect. He looked at Clarence, then back at the teens. This man's probably done more for this country than all of us combined. The room shifted again, the air charged with something new, not anger, but a quiet demand for decency. Ethan opened his mouth to retort but stopped when he saw the looks from other customers. The woman with the toddler nodded in agreement. A high school girl at another table put down her phone, her expression thoughtful. Clarence, still staring at his coffee, spoke so softly it was almost lost in the hum of the restaurant. I was in Fallujah, he said. Lost 3 buddies in one day. Came home with a bad leg and no job. Ain't nobody's fault, just how it is. His voice was steady, but there was a weight to it, a story too big for one sentence. Aisha's eyes softened, but she didn't look away. You don't have to explain anything, she said. But thank you for sharing that. She turned back to the teens, her gaze unwavering. You heard him. That's who you're laughing at. Still think it's funny? The restaurant was silent now, save for the faint sizzle of the fryers. Ethan lowered his phone completely, his face flushed. Marcus muttered something under his breath, and Lila looked like she wanted to disappear. Jay, for once, had nothing to say. And then, in that fragile moment, something unexpected happened, a spark that would ignite a chain of events no one could have predicted. The silence in the McDonald's didn't last long. It was broken by a slow clap from a woman in a nurse's uniform, sitting near the soda machine. She'd been watching the whole exchange, her lunch untouched. Good for you, girl, she said to Aisha, her voice carrying across the room. Somebody needed to say it. Another customer, an older man with a trucker hat, joined in, clapping softly. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a quiet acknowledgement that something real had just happened. Clarence looked overwhelmed, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the cheeseburger Aisha had given him. He unwrapped it slowly, like he was afraid it might vanish. Ain't had one of these in a while, he said, his voice barely audible. He took a small bite, chewed, and swallowed, his eyes fixed on the table. Aisha sat back down across from him, ignoring the stares from around the room. You take your time, she said. No rush. Ethan and his friends were no longer the center of attention, and it showed. Ethan slipped his phone into his pocket, his earlier confidence gone. Lila whispered something to Marcus, who shook his head. Jay, still trying to save face, muttered, "This is dumb. Let's bounce." but none of them moved right away. It was as if the weight of the moment had pinned them to their seats. Then a new voice broke through, strong and clear. "Excuse me," said a woman standing near the counter. She was in her late 30s, wearing a business suit and carrying a briefcase. "I couldn't help but overhear." She walked toward Clarence's table, her heels clicking on the tile floor. "Sir, I'm Monica Reed. I work with a Veterans Outreach program here in Spokane. We help people like you find housing, medical care, whatever you need." She pulled a business card from her purse and placed it on the table. "I'd like to talk to you, if that's okay." Clarence looked at the card like it was written in a foreign language. "Don't know if I'm worth the trouble," he said quietly. Monica smiled, not patronizingly but with a warmth that felt genuine. "You're worth it," she said. "And we're not giving up on you." Aisha nodded, her expression fierce. "See? Told you somebody out there cares." The teens were silent now, their earlier bravado replaced by something else, guilt, maybe, or embarrassment. Ethan shifted in his seat, his eyes darting to the door. But before they could leave, another customer approached, a man in his 50s, wearing a worn leather jacket and a Seahawks cap. "Hey," he said, looking at Clarence. "You said Fallujah. I was there, too. 2004, Marines." Clarence's eyes flicked up, a spark of recognition in them. "Army," he said. 2003 to 2005. The man nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. "You need anything, you let me know," he said, scribbling his number on a napkin and sliding it over. The restaurant was alive now, not with laughter or mockery, but with connection. People started talking, to Clarence, to Aisha, to each other. A woman with a stroller offered Clarence a bag of apples from her grocery run. A college student slipped a $10 bill onto the table, saying nothing but giving a small nod. The manager, a frazzled man named Greg, finally emerged from the back, looking confused. "What's going on out here?" he asked, but no one answered directly. The moment was bigger than explanations. Aisha stayed by Clarence's side, her presence steady and unshakable. "You don't have to take all this if it's too much," she said, gesturing to the growing pile of food and money on the table. Clarence shook his head. "Ain't used to this," he admitted. "People usually look through me, not at me." Aisha's eyes softened, but she didn't push. "Well, they're looking now," she said. Ethan, still sitting with his friends, finally spoke up, his voice quieter than before. "I didn't know," he said, barely loud enough to be heard. Aisha turned to him, her expression neutral. "You didn't ask," she said. "But you can still do better." Ethan nodded, his face red. Marcus, the quiet one, stood up suddenly. "I'm sorry," he said, looking at Clarence. "For real." Clarence didn't respond right away, just took another bite of his burger. "Takes more than words," he said finally, his voice steady but not unkind. Marcus nodded, sitting back down, his head bowed. As the afternoon wore on, the restaurant returned to its usual rhythm, but something had changed. People were kinder, more aware of each other. The woman in the nurse's uniform stopped by Aisha's counter before leaving. "You're going places, kid," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you different." Aisha smiled, a little embarrassed. "Just doing what's right," she said. That evening, as Aisha clocked out, she noticed Clarence still sitting by the window, the business card from Monica in his hand. He looked up as she passed. "You didn't have to do all that," he said. Aisha shrugged. "Somebody had to." She hesitated, then added, "You gonna call that number?" Clarence looked at the card again, then nodded. "Maybe I will." The next morning, Aisha arrived at work to find the McDonald's parking lot unusually crowded. A local news van was parked out front, and a reporter was talking to Greg, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Aisha's phone buzzed with a text from her best friend, Kayla. "Yo, you're famous. Check this link." Aisha clicked it and saw a grainy video of herself sitting with Clarence, her voice clear as she called out the teens. The caption read, "Teen employee stands up for homeless veteran, you need to see this." It had over 200,000 views already. Aisha groaned, shoving her phone into her pocket. She didn't want fame, she just wanted to get through her shift. But when she walked inside, customers were staring, some even clapping. Greg pulled her aside. "People are asking for you," he said. "The news wants an interview." "What do I tell them?" Aisha shook her head. "Tell them I'm working," she said, tying her apron. Clarence wasn't there when she started her shift, but around noon, he walked in, looking different, cleaner, his jacket brushed off, his posture a little straighter. He carried a small backpack, and the business card was tucked into his pocket. Aisha smiled when she saw him. "You called her?" she asked. Clarence nodded. "Met with Monica this morning. She's got me a bed at a shelter tonight, and a doctor's appointment tomorrow." His voice was still rough, but there was a lightness to it, like a weight had been lifted. Aisha grinned. "That's amazing." Clarence shrugged, but his eyes were brighter. "Ain't fixed everything, but it's a start." He paused, then added, "Thanks to you." Aisha waved him off. "I just sat down. You're the one doing the work now." As the day went on, more people approached Clarence. A local barber offered a free haircut. A woman from a church group brought him a new pair of boots. And then, just before the lunch rush, a man in a military jacket walked in, his face lighting up when he saw Clarence. "Whitaker," he said, incredulous. "Clarence Whitaker?" Clarence turned, his eyes narrowing, then widening. "Danny Ruiz?" The two men embraced, laughing like old friends. "We served together in '03, Clarence explained to Aisha. "Haven't seen him in 15 years. Danny sat down with Clarence, and they talked for hours, swapping stories of their time in Iraq and the years since. Danny, now a mechanic, offered to help Clarence look for work. "You always were good with your hands," he said. Clarence smiled, a real smile this time. "Maybe I still am." Meanwhile, Ethan and his friends returned to the McDonald's, but they were different, quieter, less brash. Ethan approached Aisha at the counter, his hands in his pockets. "I deleted the video," he said. "And I'm sorry." "For real?" Aisha studied him, then nodded. "Show it, don't just say it," she said. Ethan nodded back, and for the first time, he looked like he meant it. Over the next few weeks, Clarence's life began to change. With Monica's help, he moved into transitional housing and started physical therapy for his leg. Danny connected him with a local garage looking for part-time help, and Clarence, with his knack for fixing things, found himself useful again. He still came to McDonald's most days, but now it was to visit Aisha, not to escape the cold. He'd bring her a coffee sometimes, a small thank you for the day she'd changed everything. Aisha, meanwhile, became a local hero, though she hated the attention. The news story spread, and donations poured in for Veterans Connect, enough to fund a new outreach program. Aisha was offered a scholarship to a nursing program, which she accepted, though she insisted on finishing her shifts at McDonald's until the semester started. "Gotta earn my way," she told Greg. Ethan and his friends started volunteering at the shelter where Clarence stayed, at first reluctantly, then with genuine interest. Ethan, in particular, formed an unlikely bond with Clarence, helping him organize his new apartment. "I didn't get it before," Ethan admitted one day. "But I'm trying to now." Clarence clapped him on the shoulder. "That's all anybody can do." The McDonald's on 4th Avenue became a different place after that day. Customers were kinder, conversations deeper. The manager put up a sign that read, "Everyone's welcome here," and meant it. And in the quiet moments, when Aisha and Clarence sat together over coffee, they'd talk about the future, not just his, but hers, and the world they both wanted to build. The shock of that day wasn't just in the confrontation or the kindness that followed. It was in the ripple effect, how one small act of courage could change a man's life, a restaurant's culture, and a community's heart. It was proof that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary things could happen when someone decided to stand up.